Let me tell you a story about two old men, now dead. They were not at the center of my family, but they were on the periphery, right? I knew them both pretty well. One of them died rich, one of them died poor. The one who died rich died finally realizing that he had self-sabotaged, and he was unaware of it until it was too late. The one who died poor died understanding that he had accidentally laid the groundwork for himself where everyone in his family deeply loved him, and he didn't even know that he was doing that for all these years. The reason I'm making this video is because about 93% of my viewers are men. These were two old men. About half of those are less than about 50 years old. Actually, let me get this right. 80% of the people that watch this channel are between the ages of 23 and about 56. So right now I'm talking to a bunch of men, most of whom still have time to think about how it is that they're living their lives that is going to unavoidably make them either probably reasonably well-to-do, possibly lonely, or possibly not all that financially solvent, and probably overwhelmingly loved. So I'm framing this in the context of these two old men that I knew because they sort of epitomize a universal dynamic, and that is, doggone it, I see something and I want it and I'm gonna beat everyone else to get that thing. I mean, competition. And if you think that Wadsworth suddenly lost his mind, I'm going to get back to this story. But I will tell you that competition, in many ways, is a wonderful dynamic in life. I mean, who doesn't like a game of chess or a game of cards or a game of horse, or who doesn't like to watch the Super Bowl? Well, I'm one. I don't do that, but you get what I mean. Healthy competition adds interest, it adds accomplishment, it adds growth. And unhealthy competition adds misery. How do we tell the difference? Because these two old men, I think, came to their different endings because of a different understanding of competition and what it is that we should work for every darn day. So, the one old man was so competitive, so driven, so calculating, so smart. But he let his urge to have, his conquest to become rich, he determined from the time he was 16 that he was going to be a wealthy man. And he was. And in the career and in the professions and in the businesses that he pursued, competition, first to get there, best at excluding those who would get there earlier, flawless in execution of his plans that ended up with substantial investment, substantial net worth. He let that become his prime directive. He had rules that he would live by as it pertained to what he did with his money. And doggone it, he adhered to those rules. And those rules gradually throughout his life veered more and more to controlling the people around him. Control. The other old man worked in the trades. He carpentered. He ended up superintending, managing construction of churches all over the world, or at least in the West. North America, South America, he was kind of the ramrod on a lot of church building projects. And in his own work and in his own livelihood, his money all got away from him. Whatever it was that came in over the course of his life, he was never adept at investment. Never adept at making his money work for him or making anyone else work for him or serve him. I don't think he ever would have been thought of as someone who was controlling. He just sort of let the chips fall where they may and conducted himself in the way that he thought was best and blundered along. And at the end of his life, he was incapacitated, bedridden. One of his children had a house that was conducive to taking care of Dad. He didn't have resources to be taken care of by strangers. And the rest of his children would almost fight. They would argue about whose turn it was. And not from the perspective of, wait, I was there last month, but no, wait, you were there last month and now it's my turn. I want to take care of Dad. And the other old man had all the money one could possibly need to receive top drawer care when he was bedridden. And nobody was fighting to get there first. Okay, but let's talk less about the specifics of these two old men who each lived out their days and made their choices and established their relationships, and the relationships either flourished or failed based on the choices that those guys were subconsciously making, either to self-sabotage or to bring fulfillment. So when I say self-sabotage, here's what I think that term encompasses. Selfish. To be selfish is to sabotage your future happiness, because selfish makes you persona non grata in ongoing relationships. We all go to parties and we see someone over there who can only talk about self, never asks questions about you or any of the others. It's me, I, mine. And you know what? We all find a way to wander off. That's a type of self-sabotage. It is, in every negotiation, only being able to conceive of it as a win-lose negotiation. Now, is that good business? Yes, it's good business. It'll leave you on your deathbed alone with a large bank account. Man, we didn't want that. He didn't want that. He wanted the bank account. He wanted the relationships. He wanted his whole life to flourish instead of just part of it. So selfishness is a recipe for only being important to yourself and no one else. So how do we measure that? I mean, it's self-aggrandizing, it's self-centered, it's self-seeking, it's self. Leaves you in a position where that's what you got, baby. You got yourself. So self-sabotage, how is being successfully competitive self-sabotage? Well, let's look at it like this. There's plenty of popular wisdom about if you love something, set it free. And if it comes back to you, it's yours. And if it doesn't, it never was, all right? Or you can't pursue and catch happiness. You have to think of it as a butterfly. And if you ignore it, it will turn and gently land on your shoulder, okay? So I don't know if that describes it very well, but to the extent that we make acquisition our goal, to the extent that we look at every negotiation as win-lose, I win, you lose, check. I win, you lose, okay, check. To the extent that we look at negotiation like that, it is self-sabotage. Because every time that somebody we're negotiating with loses, and almost everything in life is a negotiation, that person has one more reason to avoid you. To avoid you. That is self-sabotage. Because even if it's just business, in lucid moments we can see that other humans in this human experience avoiding us and checking us off of their list of people that I will voluntarily associate with and engage with is self-sabotage. So let's talk about who's most at risk for this. And clearly, a lot of this is just personality driven. We don't all have the same personalities. We have stronger type A, we have more retiring other types that are happy not to be first in line. Some people just have to be first in line. It's just in their makeup. And some people don't care, or at least position themselves as if they're not caring. So how do we become self-aware? Now there's a self word, self-aware enough to temper selfish, temper excessively competitive. And how's excessively for a subjective and vague and unsatisfying definition? How do we tell? Because sometimes you just have to win. Well, maybe we can tell like this. Do you ever overlook someone cutting you off in traffic? Ever? I can remember really hating it, and sometimes being a little stupid. Can we see now in this moment where you're watching a video and I'm recording a video how stupid it is to react with rage to someone cutting you off? What is more childish than that, except someone getting out on the playground and getting the red rubber ball before you do? Can you see? So let's use that as a way to monitor, where am I at on this? Because we all get cut off in traffic. Maybe we can establish a trend of just not caring. The old man who died with his family anxious to minister to him, I don't think he had had a day of road rage since he was about probably, 25, when our frontal lobe stops growing. He had either suppressed or grown past or just never had that gene. All right, let me circle back to those two old men. And I knew the rich one better than I knew the poor one. The rich one thought first and foremost and always about himself. He just couldn't help it. He could not help it. And when he thought about someone else, it was to think about them in the context of how can I get them to do what I want for them to do. The one that was poor didn't strike me as having ever thought much about himself, which dovetails so nicely with one of the things C.S. Lewis taught me, that we shouldn't think less of ourselves. We should not think less of ourselves, but we should think of ourselves less. Can we train ourselves to do that? One way that you can get 2 or 3 birds with one rock is to train yourself to ask other people questions about their lives with no ulterior motive. No ulterior motive. Ask them. And then when they start to answer, don't let your attention drift and your gaze wander, but remain riveted on their answers. You're going to find that other people are interesting. And they're not just interesting in the context of what they can do for me or do for you. Another way that you can do that is through something as menial as intentionally letting someone into traffic all the time. Intentionally letting someone into the line at the grocery store all the time. Now this gets back to, I don't know much about Buddhist mentality, but I have been told that at the basis of Buddhism is an intention to suppress wanting anything. Okay, all right. That's hard. That's demanding, to suppress the urge to have and to get and to hold. So that's one type of spiritual perspective that speaks to this. The one that speaks to it most compellingly for me are the ones that are found in the New Testament about lend, expecting to not receive. Give, without looking for any recognition. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Can you see what that's doing? That is encouraging us to be generous, not for the sake of other people thinking we're generous. To the hard one of the hard ones, turn the other cheek. Once hurt, make yourself vulnerable. That's next level. Okay, that is next level. And none of that is self-sabotage. Because if you can do that with an adversary, that same motivation inside the walls of your own home is going to help love thrive. The old man who was anxiously tended by his children had learned that. He was a master of that. And then when Jesus said, whosoever finds his life shall lose it, and whoever loseth his life for my sake shall find it. What a dark saying that is. And here's what it means, is that whoever gives up his selfishness, steps back in line, volunteers for the welfare of someone else in a moment, is doing and living the invitation that Jesus gave to us about how to live. You're doing it for the sake of that instruction, for the sake of that lens, that other people matter. And they matter enough that I'm going to put myself in a subordinate position. Boom! We find our lives, instead of, like the first old man in my story, for whom that was utterly foreign. Maybe it's foreign for you. Maybe you can't help rolling your eyes at it. Maybe you can't help it. I don't think that old man could have helped it. He had people in his family who tried to get him to see things differently, and he just couldn't. He just couldn't. But maybe we can. Maybe we can think of ourselves less. And when we do think of ourselves, continuing Lewis's analogy, we think of ourselves with about the same amount of interest that we have in when we glance down and see a small, dirty object on the ground. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So if we go haywire with this, if we go clear off the deep end on this, then that's not good either, because we can't provide for our people if we are always beaten to the corn. If someone always gets there and there's nothing left to bring home, how is that also not self-sabotage? So an excess of either of these things sabotages our happiness. I mean, there are times, doggone it, when you have to be competitive. If you're going to continue to live, you have to sometimes strain every fiber. And we can all figure those moments out for ourselves as they arrive. So just to wrap this up, learning to recognize and resist the self-sabotage of selfishness and excessive competitiveness is not obvious, and it's not easy for any of us, because we have animal natures and animals fight to get what they want. But we can do it. You can do it. It's easier for some. And if you have a personality of competitiveness at any cost and win or die, you're going to have to work harder than some of us who don't have that. But set up some markers. Set up some behaviors. Find some voices to listen to that will appeal to your better angels, right? Because we have it in us to hunger for fulfilling relationships. And we have it in us to find the way to make that happen. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.